Direct News TV. June 30, 2023. French President Emmanuel Macron holds a crisis meeting, the second in 2 days, after another night of rioting fueled by the police killing of Nahel M., a teenager of North African descent. The government will examine all options for restoring order, Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne says, calling the violence intolerable and inexcusable. Macron calls on parents to keep child rioters off the streets. French President Emmanuel Macron has called on parents to keep child rioters off the streets, adding that about a third of the 875 people arrested overnight for rioting were young, or very young. It's the responsibility of parents to keep them at home, he told reporters after chairing a crisis security meeting. It's not the state's job to act in their place, he added, urging social media companies to remove the most sensitive content related to the rioting. Macron also said that additional security forces would be deployed to contain nationwide unrest in the wake of a teen's killing by police. UK warns nationals of travel disruptions amid unrest in France. The United Kingdom has warned its nationals travelling to France of disruptions to road transport, including possible curfews. There may be disruptions to road travel and local transport provision may be reduced, the British government's Foreign Office said in travel advice posted online. Some local authorities may impose curfews. Locations and timing of riots are unpredictable. You should monitor the media, avoid areas where riots are taking place. Mayor of Nanterre calls for solutions to break cycle of violence. The mayor of Nanterre has expressed his sorrow for the death of Nahel M. and the riots that ensued, during a meeting with Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne. The emotions and the anger felt after Nahel's death are always alive and shared by the whole population, Patrick Jerry said, according to French newspaper Le Figaro. We must continue to support this family, this mum who is going to bury her son tomorrow. At the same time, I have come to relay the sadness and desolation of the residents for the violence and degradation, he added. There is an urgency to find the words to exit this cycle of violence. Marseille bans protests on Friday after latest riots. Local authorities in Marseille, France's second-largest city, have announced a ban on public demonstrations on Friday after last night's riots. All public transport in Marseille will also stop as from 7 p.m., 1700 hours Greenwich Mean Time. Violence also broke out in Lyon, Pau, Toulouse, Lille and the Paris suburbs for a third consecutive night. A number of suburbs and towns in the Parisian region imposed a curfew as the country braced for more violence. French police arrested 875 in third night of rioting, ministry. French police arrested 875 people during overnight rioting, around half of them in the Paris region, the Interior Ministry has said, updating a previous figure. A total of 492 buildings were damaged, 2,000 vehicles were burned and 3,880 fires were started, according to figures given by President Emmanuel Macron at the start of a crisis meeting. Social issues, police deployment rules behind wave of violence in France, NGO. Khaled Sid Mohammed of the Committee for Justice and Liberties says the violence that has followed the killing of Nahel M. was the result of a progressive withdrawal of state authorities from the suburbs, where deep social issues, including poor schooling and drugs, have been proliferating. It is no surprise that the only means of expression left for these people is violence, he told Al Jazeera. Additionally, Sid Mohammed said more than a dozen shootings last year had not been documented on police body cameras because they had not been turned on as they should have. Germany expresses concern over France riots. Germany has expressed concern over riots in France, following widespread violence and mass arrests. Of course we view what is happening in France at the moment with some concern, government spokesperson Stéphane Hebestreit said, adding that there was no indication yet that President Emmanuel Macron would cancel a state visit to Germany. Macron is scheduled to visit Germany between Sunday and Tuesday and is due to meet with Chancellor Olaf Scholz as well as President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. Hebestreit said the French government had clearly condemned the fatal shooting of 17-year-old Nahel, and that the French president and his government worked very actively, trying to deal with the situation. Fireworks restricted after protesters used them against police. Several French regions have announced restrictions on fireworks after they were used in nightly clashes with local police. The regional administration of Pas-de-Calais announced that the possession and use of fireworks is banned on public streets by non-professionals until July 3. The prefect of Loire banned in multiple municipalities the sale, transport and possession on public spaces of all acids, fuels and portable containers, agricultural or artisanal explosives, explosive substances and fireworks. Lawyer of policeman who fired shot says he did not intend to kill. Laurent Frank Leonard, the lawyer of the police officer accused of killing Nahel M., says the defense will object to the arrest warrant because his client acted in compliance with the law. He said his client is devastated and demands forgiveness to the family. According to the policeman, he aimed his shot at the victim's leg in a bid to stop him from driving away. French PM says all options being considered to restore order. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne says the government is considering all options to restore order, including declaring a state of emergency, after a third night of unrest across the country. Asked by reporters if a state of emergency was being considered, as some right-wing opposition parties have demanded, Borne replied, "I won't tell you now, but we are looking at all options, with one priority, restoring order throughout the country." President Macron has so far ruled out declaring a state of emergency, whereby military authorities may take police powers if they judge it necessary to respond to an imminent peril resulting from a war or an armed rebellion. UN says shooting an opportunity to address racism in law enforcement. The United Nations Human Rights Office says it is concerned by the fatal police shooting of a teenager that triggered unrest across France, but that it could be an opportunity. This is a moment for the country to seriously address the deep issues of racism and racial discrimination in law enforcement, spokesperson Ravina Shamdasani said. We also emphasized the importance of peaceful assembly. We call on the authorities to ensure use of force by police to address violent elements in demonstrations always respects the principles of legality, necessity, proportionality, non-discrimination, precaution and accountability. French-Moroccan activist calls on parents to quell riots. French-Moroccan activist Latifa Ibn Ziaten, whose son Imad was killed in a shooting in 2012, has appealed to all parents to intervene to quell the violence spreading across France. "I appeal to all parents to reason with their children," she wrote on Twitter. Violence cannot be a solution. Degrading your environment is harming yourself. You deserve better than these riots. You are worth more than hatred. Do not debase yourself with destruction. Île-de-France president to ask for €20 million in emergency funds. Valérie Pécresse, president of the Regional Council of Île-de-France, has announced on Twitter that she will put to the vote on Wednesday a request for €20 million, $21.6 million, in emergency funds, to cover the damage caused by riots in the suburbs of Paris. In response to the ultra-violence that destroys schools, municipalities, police stations and discourages the people of the popular neighborhoods, the region will respond by being present, Pécresse said. How will France address police brutality? Rights groups say the killing of 17-year-old Nahel M. by a police officer in Nanterre, a working-class town just outside Paris, is just one of the many instances of systemic racism targeting poor and ethnically diverse communities. French PM gathers ministers ahead of emergency meeting. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne says she has gathered ministers at her office to discuss a third night of unbearable and inexcusable rioting over a teen's death in a police shooting. Ahead of an emergency afternoon meeting held by Macron, the government was getting an update on the violence and abuses overnight, Borne wrote on Twitter, posting pictures with other officials including Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin and Justice Minister Éric Dupond-Moretti. In the tweet, Borne also expressed her support for police forces and firefighters who are carrying out their task with bravery. Interior Ministry says 667 arrested after third night of rioting. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin has said on Twitter that police made 667 arrests after a third night of violent protests. Riots broke out in Marseille, Lyon, Pau, Toulouse and Lille as well as parts of Paris, including the working-class suburb of Nanterre, where 17-year-old Nahel M., who was of Algerian and Moroccan descent, was shot dead during a traffic stop on Tuesday. Nationwide, 249 police officers were injured, authorities said. Videos on social media showed numerous fires lit across the country, also including trams and buses. Transport Minister Clement Beaune told RMC Radio that public transport in the Paris region would be severely disrupted on Friday and did not rule out an early closure of the network. My name is Kingsley. Please like, share, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can be the first to be notified whenever we post. You won't regret it.